What's up, you friggin' geniuses? So, in this video, I'm going to give you an introduction into ratios. Okay, so first of all, what is a ratio? So, ratios are used to compare two or more numbers or quantities. And when you're writing ratios, you generally write them in three different ways. Okay, so your answer would be either something like A to B, or A over B, or you would write it as A to B, like that, with the colon in between them. Now, I know this looks super vague, so let me do an example, and then it's going to make a lot more sense, all right? So let's do this one. Okay, so this first example says you have 5 real friends and 100 Facebook friends. Okay, all right, we got to work on that, all right? Now, the question says, what is the ratio of real friends to Facebook friends? Okay, so what would your answer be? Well, order is very, very important in these types of questions. So it's really important to notice in the question that it listed real friends first. So it says real friends to Facebook friends. Okay, so that's how I'm going to write my answer. So in this case, my answer would be 5 to 100. Okay, or I could write my answer those two other ways that I showed you. So I could write it as 5 over 100, okay? Or again, I could write it as 5 to, or colon, 100, okay? Any of these three answers right here would be acceptable. Now, one thing I want to mention about your answer right here, 5 over 100, is you could simplify it if you wanted to, and your answer would still be correct, okay? So if you had 5 over 100, you could divide the top and the bottom by 5, and then that would reduce down to 1 over 20. This would still be correct. Okay, and one thing I want to point out about this form right here is just by thinking about it like a sideways fraction. Okay, so if I took 5 over 10 and I flipped it on its side, it kind of looked like this, right? So if it helps, just think about this as a sideways fraction. But the only difference being, instead of a bar, we're using the 2 dots, okay? So if you wanted to simplify this, you could simplify it the same way you did this one. You could divide both sides by 5. Okay, so then your answer here would be 1 to 20. And you could also do it to the first way that we wrote our answer over here, right? 5 to 100 would be the same thing as 1 to 20, okay? So hopefully that made sense. Let's jump to this next question. So this one says, what is the ratio of Facebook friends to real friends? Okay, so really important to pay attention to details here, okay? So again, order is very important. So in this example, it listed Facebook friends first and then real friends second, right? So in this question, your answer would be reversed, okay? So what is the ratio of Facebook friends to real friends? Well, it would just be 100 to 5, okay? 100 to 5. Okay, or if you wanted to write it as a fraction, it'd be 100 over 5. Or if you wrote it with a colon like up here, then your answer would be 100 colon 5. Okay, and just like in the previous problem, I could reduce all of these, okay? So 100 to 5, I could write that as 20 to 1, okay? Or 100 over 5, I could write that as 20 over 1. Okay, or again, 100 to 5, I could write that as 20 to 1, okay? And one clarification I want to make down here is your fraction right here, 20 to 1. So if you have an answer of 20 to 1, don't reduce it down to just 20, because then this isn't a ratio anymore, right? Ratios compare two different numbers. Here we just have one number, right? Because here it says you have 20 Facebook friends, and then what happened to your real life friend? Right here. Well, you killed them. Don't kill your real life friends. So make sure you still include the 1 down there. Okay, let's do one more example, and instead of just comparing 2 quantities, we're going to compare 3, so you know how that looks like. All right, so here the problem says you have 15 YouTube subscribers, 5 Twitter followers, and 20 Instagram followers. So what is the ratio of YouTube to Twitter to Instagram followers? And remember, order is very important, okay? So first it says YouTube, so 15, then Twitter, right, 5, then Instagram, which is 20, okay? So your answer would be 15 to 5 to 20, okay? Or if you wanted to write it as a fraction, it would be 15 to 5 to 20. So YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, right? You go in order, the same order you went right here, okay? Or if you wanted to write it using a colon, then it would look almost identical to this first answer, right? It would be 15 to 5 to 20, okay? Only difference here is instead of putting twos, you just put colons, right? That's the only difference. Okay, and let's try this last question. So this one's asking, what is the ratio of Instagram to YouTube to Twitter followers? So pay attention to the order. Instagram is 20, right? So 20 to YouTube, YouTube was 15. And then to Twitter, and Twitter was 5. Okay, so in this case, your answer would be 20 to 15 to 5. Okay, and if I wrote it as a fraction, it would be 20 over 15 over 5. Okay, or again, one last time with the colons, I would write it as 20 colon 15 colon 5. Okay, and I didn't do it throughout these two last questions, but if you wanted to, you could also reduce these. All right, so for example, each of these three numbers are divisible by 5. So 20 divided by 5 is 4. Right? 15 divided by 5 is 3. And then 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay, so I could also write this as 4 to 3 to 1. And if I wanted to do that to my fraction over here too, I could do the same thing. So then it would just be 4 to 3 to 1. Okay? All right, guys, so there's your introduction into ratios. So I hope the examples were helpful. If they were, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you still have any questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to try and help you out. Also, there's a playlist attached at the end of the video, so if there's any other topics you need help with, definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.